Key 19, the Sun. Resh, transliterated as the letter R, value 200, means the head and face of man. In the head are gathered together, or collected, all the distinctively human powers. The word countenance, in fact, is derived from a Latin verb meaning to hold together, to contain. Again, the head of any project is its organizer, director, guiding power, manager, controller. Thus, we may expect to find in the symbols of Key 19 plain intimations of authority and leadership. South, the direction attributed to Resh, is the place of the sun's meridian height, the place of its greatest brilliance and power. On the cube of space, this is the southern face on the observer's right when the cube is viewed from the west. The sun is the heavenly body corresponding to Resh. We have found it exalted in Aries, key 4, the emperor, and ruling Leo, key 8, strength. It is the power which reaches its highest manifestation in reason, and which always and everywhere is the ruling force which makes effective the law symbolized by strength. The sun's color is orange. The musical tone is D natural. Fruitfulness and sterility, the pair of opposites attributed to Resh, are the extremes of expression in the manifestation of solar force. The sun causes all growth, but it also makes deserts. Collecting or collective intelligence is the mode of consciousness. To collect is to assemble, to bring together, to combine, to unify, to embody, to synthesize. The collective intelligence concentrates all the modes of consciousness which have gone before, and combines them together in a new form. Thus, it is a regenerative mode of consciousness, incorporating all the elements of control in a new realization of personality. As the number 19 may be reduced to 10, while 10 in turn may be reduced to 1, we may understand that the symbolism of the picture now before us is logically dependent on that of the magician, number 1, and also on that of the Wheel of Fortune, 10. It is also the final term of the series of keys representing self-conscious intellection, vis-a-vis key 1, the magician, key 4, the emperor, key 7, the chariot, key 10, the Wheel of Fortune, key 13, death, and key 16, the tower. The title refers to the dominant symbol, which is a sun with a human countenance. It represents the truth that the seemingly material forces of nature really are modes of a conscious energy, essentially human in character and potencies. The rays of the sun are alternatively waved and salient. The wavy rays represent vibration. The straight ones represent radiation, which is apparently in straight lines. 4 sunflowers representing the 4 Kabbalistic worlds and the 4 kingdoms of nature, mineral, vegetable, animal, and human, turn not toward the day star, but toward the little children, as if to hint that all creation turns to man for its final development. In the BOTA version, a 5th sunflower is shown. It is still in bud and turns toward the sun. This bud represents the 5th kingdom, the kingdom of the spiritual Israel, composed of human beings who, by understanding the law of evolution which has brought organized life expression as far as ordinary genus Homo, is enabled to apply that law to the self-evolution of a new creature, who is as far beyond ordinary humanity as the average human being is beyond the animals. As yet, though the whole line of sages, prophets, adepts, and masters belongs to the 5th kingdom, that company of new creatures is small, by comparison with the mass of humanity. Thus, it is symbolized by a sunflower bud rather than in full bloom. And because the outstanding characteristic of all members of the 5th kingdom is their utter dependence on the universal life power, this 5th flower turns toward the sun. The wall in the background represents human adaptation of natural conditions. It is, furthermore, a symbol of the whole chain of ideas related to the letter Chet, because it is a stone fence. Thus, it is a symbol of all the ideas represented by key 7 of the tarot, especially the idea of speech. Thus, life and the word, flowers and wall, are shown in the background of key 19 to indicate the underlying forces at work in what is symbolized by this key. Note that in the BOTA version, the wall is of stone in contrast to the bricks which compose the tower in key 16. Wherever stone appears in tarot symbolism, we are to understand it as a reference to the Hebrew word Aleph, Beth, Nun, A-B-N, Abin, and thus to the perfect union between the divine wisdom, which Kabbalists call Ab, Aleph, Beth, the Father, and the one self of the entire human race, which they call Ben, Beth, Nun, the Son. Human speech, the wall, is actually the manifestation of this union, because all personal consciousness is based on the indissoluble union of the cosmic life force, Ab, the Father, with the central self, Ben, the Son, seated in the hearts of men. From the most primitive speech to the most highly evolved languages, humanity's word forms evolve as a direct consequence of the fact that the word maker is the central self. As the self evolves higher and higher types of personality through successive rounds and races, language becomes a more and more adequate vehicle for the expression of ideas. Yet all human language has one basic limitation. Its words are descriptions of, or labels for, various types of sense experience. Thus, the wall, though it is of stone, has 5 courses symbolizing the 5 human senses. Even in the languages which have the largest vocabularies, all concrete terms are limited to describing things and activities within range of the senses, and all abstract terms are derived directly from the field of sensory experience. This is why language fails whenever one attempts to use it to represent experiences which go beyond the range of physical sensation. This is why mystics and seers are forced to resort to symbolic uses of language. It is not that they are trying to hide anything. Nobody could be more eager to express himself than a wise man who has had first-hand knowledge of the inner and higher planes of experience. This is especially apparent in the writings of the alchemists, who had discovered a great secret they wished to share with their fellow men. Yet none of them succeeded in saying what he saw. To most readers, the alchemists seem to be doing their best to conceal what they know. The truth of the matter is that ordinary speech will not serve to convey this kind of experience from one mind to another. On the other hand, he who has had the experience finds that he has no difficulty in understanding the words. As one grows into the state of consciousness we have called the fifth kingdom, one understands the special meanings which the sages give to words, and discovers that for the seers of all periods of human history there is, so to say, a new tongue, intelligible to all who have had the higher kind of experience. Yet even this magical language will not serve to express the highest forms of realization. Consequently, the children in this key are shown standing with their backs to the wall, and the little girl indeed turns the palm of her hand toward the wall, as if in a gesture of repudiation. Both children are nude, to show their state of Edenic innocence, comparable to that of the lovers in key 6. They are not quite adolescent, to indicate that this stage of unfoldment, though it is one of regeneration, is not the full unfoldment of the powers of the fifth kingdom. The children represent self-consciousness and subconsciousness, and they are dancing in a fairy ring, their hands clasped, to suggest the perfect union and rhythmic synchronization of the activities of the 2 modes of human personality. Each has one foot planted firmly in the central circle of the ring, so that the other foot is free to swing. And the boy's right hand is extended before him, palm upward, as if ready to accept something he expects to receive. This key represents the 5th stage of spiritual unfoldment. It is a degree of adeptship, that of liberation from the limitations of physical matter and circumstances. It is also a grade of conscious self-identification with the one life. Yet it is not final. For though it is a stage wherein all physical forces are under the control of the adept, who, having himself become childlike, realizes in his own person the fulfillment of the promise, quote, "A little child shall lead them," end quote. Yet a person who has reached this grade still feels himself to be a separate, or at least a distinct entity. This is not full liberation, though it is a higher stage than any of those preceding it. It is, in particular, the stage in which all physical forces are dominated by the will of the adept, because he is an unobstructed vehicle for the one will, which has always ruled those forces, since the beginning. Note: since Key 19 is one in which the symbolism of the BOTA version, though conforming to that of most other tarot packs, differs markedly from that of the Rider pack, we feel impelled to close this chapter with the 4 paragraphs explaining the meaning of the central figure in the symbolism devised by Dr. Waite. We quote from the first edition of Key to the Tarot. Quote, "The child is fair, like the fool, and like the fool wears a wreath and a red feather. The feather has the same meaning as that of the fool. The wreath is of flowers instead of leaves, intimating the near approach to the harvest of final realization and liberation. The child is naked, in accordance with an old Kabbalistic saying that spirit clothes itself to come down, and divests itself of the garments of matter to go up. The nipples and navel of the child are the points of a water triangle, hinting at the letter Mem and the hanged man. For the stage of unfoldment represented by the sun is the expression of the law the hanged man symbolizes. His red banner signifies action and vibration. Its black staff is like the black wand of the fool, but it is tipped with a point similar to the staff of the charioteer, and like it signifying concentration. The banner is carried in the left hand as an intimation that the measurement and control of vibration which it indicates has passed from self-consciousness, the right hand, to subconsciousness, has become automatic. Thus, it is easy, and the great standard seems no burden to the boy. He rides a horse, symbol of solar energy, similar to the horse of death, Key 13 in the Rider pack. He rides without saddle or bridle, because he represents perfect balance. That balance is maintained by his outstretched right hand, which represents self-consciousness. He is the regenerated personality recognizing and affirming its unity with the Father or Source of all. He leaves behind the artificial erections of race consciousness, and fares forth, free and joyous, on his journey home." End quote.